Hello, world, and welcome back to Keziah's Media and Literacy Views podcast. On today's episode, we are looking at one of the most controversial issues in media and literacy: gender and societal roles. Don't worry, it's not too scary to talk about. Today, with the help of inspirational Malala Yousafzai and two literary pieces, The Great Gatsby and Macbeth, we will be diving into just how each of these three perspectives view gender roles in their society. Bear with me a little longer, and you'll get to meet our special guest of the evening, who we will be playing a game with to talk about stereotypes in gender roles. Gender and societal roles are the expected behavior and reactions that each gender are subjected to. In some societies, men are believed to be dominant, whereas in others, women lead. This is due to cultural and environmental influences. For example, during the era of Shakespeare, it's seen that women were not allowed to do much in the theater, and much less in life. Actors, who were often male, took upon the roles of women in a play or production, whereas women were primarily homemakers, as perceived and enforced by society for as long as one can remember. Women were given very few rights, not even to vote. A contrast to the society around them in terms of gender role can be seen in the play Macbeth. Gender roles are explored primarily through characters such as Lady Macbeth and the Weird Sisters. Lady Macbeth propels her husband towards murdering King Duncan. Also, the disruption of gender roles is presented through her dominant role in their marriage. On many occasions, she rules her husband and dictates his actions. She even goes as far as to indicate she must take on masculine characteristics, as during that time, dominance was a manly characteristic. The disruption of gender roles is also seen in the Weird Sisters. The trio is perceived as violating nature, and despite their designation as sisters, the gender of these characters is also ambiguous. Upon encountering them, Banquo says, "You should be women, and yet your beards forbid me to interpret that you are so." Their facial hair symbolizes the influence in their affairs of the male-dominated warrior society that Scotland had. Dually, it could be that actors are referring to the fact that beards belong to actual men who portrayed more female characters. Critics see the witch and the Lady Macbeth's rebellion against gender roles and the characteristics as a device Shakespeare uses to criticize the male-dominated culture. Many years later, this issue remained. As seen in the era of 1920s post-war novel, one of my personal favorites, The Great Gatsby. Its author, F. Scott Fitzgerald, writes about gender roles in a sort of conservative way, true to the century at the time. Men are portrayed as the dominant gender. They also have more privileges than women, such as being considered for a higher job position, being able to attend universities, and having voting rights. Women were starting to get rights as well, but they were still considered the homemakers. And some of them have even chosen to express themselves by working where they can, and smoking, which were previously only known to be expressed by men. The men of our novel are portrayed as powerful. Both Tom Buchanan, who is wealthy by birthright, and Jay Gatsby, who is rich by newfound money, can be seen exerting their power in the world around them. Tom seems to want to control the women in his life, like Daisy, whom he keeps close to him through his riches and status, and Myrtle Wilson, who he abused to show control, and makes promises of a better life with her. Jay Gatsby, another man, once reunited with his love Daisy, proves he is also a man true to the society, as he tells Daisy who and whom not to love, not allowing her her own opinion. During that time, men did not value the opinion of women, as it was conditioned into our society. There was one woman who contrasted these stereotypical roles. Her name was Jordan Baker. She was an outspoken individual from the novel who had an aura of confidence that was only seen in the men of that era. This led her to be different than the rest of the women of the novel, who were seen as being controlled and submissive to men. This also led her to be criticized for her behavior, which wasn't that of a typical woman. It goes to show how the society treats those who did not conform to their ideals. Wow, it's crazy to think about how different gender and societal roles were back then compared to now, even as portrayed in literature. I'm so glad it's improved. I will shortly return after a small commercial break, where we will talk more about present-day example and how Malala Yousafzai defied gender roles.
Jack be nimble, Jack be quick. Jack knocked over a candlestick onto the shag carpeting, and his pants ignited into flames, causing him to stop, drop, and roll. Luckily, Jack recently had Geico help him with renter's insurance, because all his belongings went up in flames. Jack got full replacement and now has new pants he ordered from Banana Republic. Visit geico.com and see how affordable renter's insurance can be.
And we're back. But before we get back to our topic, let's give a round of applause for our guest star of the night, Shara Bautista. Hi, Shara. How are you tonight?
I'm good, Keziah. How about you?
I'm great. Jumping on to why you're here tonight, we're going to play a little game called Is It a Girl or Boy Thing?
That sounds super exciting. Let's begin.
All right. First question. What gender would you associate the color blue with?
I think I would associate blue with a boy.
Why is that?
I don't know. I just usually see boys in blue.
Interesting. Next question. Are you more likely to take cooking or woodshop as a high school elective?
Cooking. I don't want to be the only girl in a class full of boys.
Makes sense. Last question. Are you more likely to see male or female nurses in a hospital?
I've mostly seen female nurses for some strange reason, although I know male nurses do exist.
Thanks so much for answering all our questions and joining us, Shara.
It was great to be here. I love your podcast.
Just so that you know, most of these answers, except for the last one, were staged to show how a younger person would generally respond to these type of questions. Although the answers may seem untrue, for some people, these are our reality. This is because from an early age, we have a clear idea of gender roles, which include things we like, behaviors, and choices that are associated with being male or female, when we conform to those roles and identify with them. These ideas come from all sorts of sources, our families, the media, and what we see in our world. Studies have shown that parents speak different to baby boys and girls, and our cultural beliefs reinforce what is seen to be acceptable behavior of males or females. This includes what we do, what we like, and how we behave. Malala Yousafzai, a personal hero of mine, has been an advocate for women's rights, defying gender roles in society as early as 2009, when she created a blog speaking up about how unfair the Taliban, a group of dictators who terrorize many nations even today, are. Malala is an advocate for young girls who do not have a voice. Gender roles have been imposed on us from a very young age. They have plagued the society into being unfair. Men feel the need to display control, as we have never been told by anybody that women are of equal power to men with identical rights. Malala is a firm believer in the fact that gender roles do play a big part in our lives in dictating how we behave. She argues, though, that it shouldn't justify cruel behavior towards another gender, or discrimination because of a physicality. Her main issue, which inspired her to make moves as a youth, was her thirst for knowledge, like many young girls I know, who enjoy getting educated. The sole difference between those two are, the girls I know live in a country where education is a right for all genders, whereas Malala, unfortunately, lives in a place where it is punishable to be a girl, getting something as mundane to us as an education. Malala became a household name in 2011 when she was awarded the Pakistani Children's Nobel Peace Prize Award for her determination to give girls a right to education. Many people were against her campaign, sadly, as they believed the role of a young girl wasn't to get an education, but it was to sit at home and prepare for her future family. Her story begins in 2012, when the 15-year-old was on a bus ride home from school, where she was sitting with her friends just discussing schoolwork, when a Taliban soldier stopped the bus and fired 3 shots at her, injuring her severely. She was then transported from a Pakistani hospital to another in England, where she was placed in an ICU. She suffered nerve damage to the side of her face and had to have many surgeries that were complicated. But in the end, she survived and began attending school in Birmingham, England. It was her struggles and the way she bounced back from all the hate that created a global outpour to support her and her cause. She began speaking publicly in many countries and advocating girls in every third world country who were unable to get an education due to their gender or even lack of money. She then received the International Nobel Peace Prize that awarded her for funding to support children and girls everywhere who deserve to be educated as a right. She inspires me till this day. As a Catholic student, I can say proudly that Malala demonstrates 3 Catholic graduate expectations beautifully. She effectively communicates her concerns, she is a responsible student on the media, and she is a discerning believer as she holds so much hope for young girls to succeed in life. Malala for me is a symbol of resilience. She makes me feel represented as an individual, as there are very few Pakistanis in the news that are girls, which makes her a sort of role model for me in a way. I feel like I should do my part as well, as a member of an active society, to promote all sorts of things that other kids aren't as fortunate as us to get. The fact that education is a privilege to us that we are given and that we need to be more grateful and to value it, just like Malala wants. In conclusion, gender and societal roles still exist, whether it be in the real world or even in literature. It is in the end up to us to change the negativity placed upon boys and girls, to act a certain way to conform to society. Let's stop forcing boys to be so tough all the time, and girls to act helpless. Instead, let's accept them for who they want to be. Let's make the world a better place for our future generation. Thank you. Please join me next time, where we will be talking about racism in literature and how the Black Lives Matter movement has inspired many.